Hey guys, what's up? My name is Anthony, and welcome to another edition of B&A Sports Talk. And today what I want to talk about is some moves the Giants should make. I'm not saying they will, but some moves the Giants should make at the trade deadline. Now, are we going to make these moves? I'm not too sure because Dave Gettleman's on borrowed time. The ownership maybe should be like, oh, don't make any deals. We're going to win or we're going to lose. Don't do anything because you're going to be gone if we're not successful. I'm not too sure what the exact plan is. I'd say I'm leaning more towards he's getting fired and he's not going to make a lot of deals. There should be some selling off and some smarter moves. I don't think Dave Gettleman was going to go out in a firestorm. I don't think he's that type of guy. We already traded Marcus Golden away for a 6th-round pick. I think that's a good move because, you got something out of nothing. Literally, you just signed a guy and you got a 6th-round pick out of him. And now we get to see what O'Shane has. We got to see what a lot of these guys have. That being said, the first trade idea is getting Desmond King a cornerback. Now, the biggest weakness on the Giants, I've said it, is our secondary. Ryan Lewis, he's been playing decent, but he has a 42 PFF grade. He's probably playing a little bit better than his PFF grade suggests, but he got burned two out of the last 3 weeks on game-winning catches, pretty much. Landon Collins, that was a beautifully thrown ball. Ryan Lewis, there were pretty good thrown balls too. I don't think a lot of corners would be able to defend them, but he hasn't really been playing that well. He's had some highlights. He had some, bright spots, but Corey Ballantyne, he's a 5th-round pick. I think it's a sunk cost. Desmond King would be a great addition to the team. He's a cornerback in his 4th year. And the Chargers, they do cornerbacks well. They have Derwin James that's going to be returning next year. They also have Chris Harris Jr. And I think that they have a bunch of corners that they feel confident in for the future. What they do struggle at is guard and protecting Justin Herbert. Their guard position is like bottom 5 in the NFL. And I think that, with Desmond King, he's been rated good on PFF every single year. For the Chargers this year, he's rated a 74. He has 19 total tackles, 15 targets, 10 receptions allowed, so that's good for a 66% completion percentage. And overall, I'll throw up the stats on the screen. I don't want to bore you guys with stats, but overall, he's a decent player. I think he'd be a good addition to the Giants and could help our secondary out. We need a CB2 next to James Bradbury. I was thinking about Anthony Harris, but I think that Desmond King would be a better option because although he's not the fastest in the world, he does contribute on special teams. It could take Jabril Peppers out of that spot, making him a little bit more healthy. Desmond King isn't the fastest person in the world, but he has a good football IQ, and I think he'd be valuable for the Giants. Now, this move has a couple of implications. First of all, it hurts our offensive line depth. We'd have to put Shane Lemieux in at right guard. Is he ready? I'm not too sure. I'm not at practice. Maybe they're kind of holding that back. Kevin Zeitler also would save a bunch of money and for next year if we want to get another offensive lineman in the draft. Also with Desmond King, he's going into the last year of his rookie deal, so it's kind of a little bit of a rental, but if we could solve CB2, early, that'd be great. I want to add good players to this team, and all of a sudden now you have Desmond King, Logan Ryan, and McKinney's coming back, and your defensive, core is looking pretty good. Next one, I mentioned it before in a video, J.J. Watt. Now, if we can get a 2nd-round pick, great. We have to offload a lot of cap space for this. We'd have to make a lot of other moves because he's getting paid like $15 to $16 million a year. But it's this year, and it would be next year. The Texans will be looking to sell players. They're not Zach Cunningham. I've seen Zach Cunningham and Whitney Merciless on those lists. I don't think so. J.J. Watt, he feels Houston, but you take a look at this defensive front with J.J. Watt. That would be insane. I don't think it's going to happen, but I really want it to happen. A 2nd-round pick. J.J. Watt hasn't really been regressing that much. You could say that he's been injured over the past couple years, but I'd take a 2-year flyer on this guy because he has had, success in the past, obviously. He's been a defensive MVP, and then you pair him up with Leonard Williams, Dalvin Tomlinson, Dexter Lawrence. It depends. You're going to have to get rid of one of those guys if you do sign J.J. Watt because you'd be, giving him a lot of money and, spending $50 million on the defensive line. I'm not too sure if it's a recipe for success, but so far this year in 2020, he's been playing fairly well. He hasn't been playing awfully well by any means. He has 6 QB hits. He also has another 5 tackles for a loss. And you could say this is kind of he hasn't really been motivated to play that well because he's been on such a bad team, but he's shown some flashes. The couple times I've seen him, he's been in the backfield. He's been, still making plays. It's not like he sucks. And, again, it would be a decent move if you're the Giants. The next move I think the Giants should make is getting another linebacker like Myles Jack. Now, I know you're saying we have Blake Martinez already, but Myles Jack, baby, You know, he's rated an 89 on PFF. His stock is the highest right now, but the Jaguars are looking to sell assets. You know, they may be looking like, okay, let's keep a couple guys, but they got rid of Yannick. They said they wouldn't. You know, Josh Allen is a young player. They're probably going to keep him, but you have some young players on this defense, like a CJ Henderson, like a Clavon Chason. Haven't been playing that great, but, you know, if we can get a Myles Jack, him paired with a Blake Martinez, we'd have one of the best linebacking duos in the league. You're not too sure what you have in Tate Crowder. You're not too well, you know what you have in David Mayo. David Mayo is just David Mayo. Like, just picture David Mayo. He's just like, yeah, he's a decent run defense. Doesn't do anything in the pass game. And if you tell me you can get Myles Jack for a second and a fifth, you know, his stock is probably higher than that. But if you take a look at the Jaguars, they're getting rid of a lot of assets. They already have a lot of draft picks. I don't think this is likely because we're going to have like 30 draft picks. And yeah, so if you take a look at his contract, so first of all, he got drafted in 2016. He just signed a 4-year contract extension last year. But if the Jaguars, it kind of makes sense because you save about like 12, I forgot the exact number, like $12 to $16 million, and you only pay a dead cap of like $3 million for the rest of this year. And he's kind of like, yeah, I'm the only one left. From what I've heard, he's kind of like proud of that. Like, yeah, I'm the only one left here. But he may be like, there's nobody here. The Jacksonville doesn't really have a future. Where's my quarterback? That sort of thing. And he may be looking at Daniel Jones like, yeah, this guy can do some things. You know, he hasn't been surrounded by a lot of talent, but they see where the team is going forward. And that's why it's important to try in all these games if you're the Giants, because you can attract guys like this. The next move I think that the Giants should make is going with and doing another bit of a swap. And maybe getting a Chase Winovich or a David Andrews and swapping for a Dalvin Tomlinson. Ideally, no, because the defensive tackle's value isn't great. I'd look for a Chase Winovich. You know, he was arguing with Bill Belichick on the sideline the other day. You can say it's kind of like a Nick Foles, Matt Nagy thing from a couple weeks ago where they're like progressively, you know, talking to each other. But he was a third-round pick from Michigan, and Joe Judge is very familiar with him because I bet you he was on special teams his rookie year, and I bet you Joe Judge can, you know, figure out some ways to put him on this defense and some extra pass-heavy things. Now, he hasn't been that productive this year, but he has had 3 sacks. And, you know, with the Patriots, I made a video earlier in the offseason saying, like, the Patriots could, you know, if they do sell off a lot of their players, the Giants can be beneficiaries. And this is, like, just a total point. Could we get a David Andrews? Joe Thuney, I think he's on the franchise tag. I should have done more research into that, but I think he's on the franchise tag. They also have some young corners. So throw this in, getting a player from the Patriots, a cornerback, on a decent enough value, selling them off, and getting them to the Giants would be a pretty good idea. You know, I'd be max willing to give up a 3rd-round pick for one of these guys, maybe like a 3rd for a 7th and the player or something like that. Get our Yannick pick back, but yeah, I think that'd be a good idea because we have some holes on this defense because, again, a lot of people are injured and some people are in jail. The final move, I was thinking about Evan Ingram, but I want to say Leonard Williams because he's probably the greatest asset we have now. He ranked number 2 on my Giants ratings this offseason, and I think he's worth a second. You know, he has had 3 sacks, and he has been productive. He feels happy to be a Giant. I think, again, you have to make a decision between Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson. Now, if the 49ers call and they're like, hey, you know, we lost Nick Bosa. Now, he's not a pure edge guy. We all know that. He's not a pure edge guy. But, you know, you could slide him in there. If the 49ers get some momentum, they may be like, let's onboard Leonard Williams, 2nd-round pick. We've seen them be willing to make deals. You know, they signed a D Ford for a 3rd-round pick. They had a 1st-round pick, and then they had to wait all the way to the 5th to get another pick this year. So we know that they're willing to gamble with that. That hurts a little bit of their depth. They may be like, okay, let's do like a normal draft this year, but whatever. Green Bay, they have a bunch of pieces on that defense. None of them are really good run stuffers, though. And the Leonard Williams, what he does is he attracts double teams. And that could allow Darius Smith and some other pieces on the defensive line. Maybe Rashawn Gary, I think he's a little bit hurt. But, you know, some other pieces we all know on that defensive line to, you know, succeed. And, yeah, I think that's another decent option. Also, Tennessee, I think they'd be willing to give up a second. Javion Clowney, Leonard Williams. That defensive line is bottom 5 in the league. They let up a lot of points to Pittsburgh, and that's because they couldn't get a lot of pressure. They have to start scheming things. And, yeah, with that defensive system, I think that Leonard Williams could be a decent piece. I think they do run more of a 4-3, but it doesn't really matter. I think Leonard Williams, I don't know, he can work in a 3-4 or 4-3. I don't think it really matters. Preach versatility. And, yeah, so the couple of guys that we would get have a decent amount of versatility. Chase Winovich in a trade. Obviously, we're not going to do all these, but, you know, Chase Winovich, he's special teams and, you know, and defense. And then you also have Desmond King, who's played a decent amount of special team snaps. And these can be vital additions to the Giants team. Let me know what you guys think. There's some names I'm throwing around. Some new, some, you know, obviously stereotypical like Leonard Williams. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.